Back on this motor again. Just looking at it, and I just came out and opened the hood. I had to close it and shut it down for a day because of bad weather. I wish I'd put the valve cover back on it. I had no idea that this much water was going to get underneath the hood. This is terrible. Didn't take long. I got to hurry up and get this thing off of there. Get this camshaft and rocker arms off of there and polish them up before the rust does any damage to them. My plan is to pull a couple of injectors out and stick a camera down inside the injector hole and see what I can find in there, because I'm hoping I can do an in-frame rebuild on this motor. Camshaft is not fun on this Detroit motor. You've got to do something with the timing gear in here and lock the gear in place with a tool. It's just a big job. We'll get to that part when we get there. I just took an air hose and blew all the water off the top of this motor, camshaft and everything, and I think I'm going to change my plan just a little bit. I'm just going to take the rocker arm assemblies off, and then I'll be able to polish all of this stuff by hand. I can polish these rollers in the garage. That one's loose. The other ones must be on high camp. I'll polish those up in the garage, and then I'll get the injectors out. I'll take all 6 injectors out, and I have to note where they go because each one has a specific number to it, and whenever they put the engine on a computer, then they know which injector is doing what by those numbers. So I can get this thing figured out, find out what's going on inside once I get the injectors out. I have a camera that can look down in there, and hopefully I can find out what's going on when I get to that point. The rocker arm assembly is going to come off with these bolts right here, right down the center of the rocker arm shafts. I've had this off before, and I think it comes off the front 3 and then the back 3. I think they're separate in the middle. In fact, I can see a gap in between here. It's been years since I've had to do an overhead on this motor. An overhead means adjusting the valves and adjusting the Jake brake. So yeah, this 12 millimeter 12-point socket is what I need to get those off. This one looks like it's going to be different. I don't remember, but it's just a different size bolt. We'll see. Once again, I can't hold the camera on a tripod up here, so I got to do it in stages and then keep coming back and explaining each step I'm doing in between filming. I got those rocker arm shafts off. I don't have anyone to hand them to. I had to take them off one at a time and set them down here, climb down, and then pick them up again. And I'm using my disposable gloves here, socks with holes in them. I guess that's just me. I make use of everything until it's nothing left of it. I'm going to take these injector wires off, and it's a little 5 millimeter 6-point screw right here and right there. Each injector has 2 of them. Just loosen up these screws a little bit and slide these wires over, lift them off. They got like a keyhole on them, on those injectors. Pretty obvious how to get the injectors out. This little 3-legged clamp down here, just take all these bolts off, 15 millimeter. Okay, this clamp comes off with the injector, and you have to get a screwdriver or a heel bar or something and get it underneath there to pry it loose, underneath the edge there. And then you lift the injector out and the clamp together, but you got to make sure your antifreeze is down low enough. Don't ever do this with antifreeze in the motor. You got to at least take a couple 5-gallon buckets full out, I'm going to wind up taking all of it out because it looks like I am up against doing an in-frame overhaul on this. I only took 2 5-gallon buckets out to get started to find out what's wrong. So, because there's water that runs around the head of that injector, and it's going to run right into the motor if you don't have the water out before you pull the injector out. With all the injectors out, I can turn the motor by hand pretty easy, and I just polished over, just dried off with a rag these cam lobes over here because of the water droplets they got on them. Let's see if I can get in here in a position to do this with one hand. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's turning. So I'm going to get the cam all the way around and keep turning it until I get all that water off that that was actually starting to leave some yellow spots on there. I found something here. On a 6-cylinder engine, straight 6 engine, you got running mates, which means the first cylinder up here and the last one back here, the pistons are going up and down exactly the same. When this piston is up, number 1 is up also. And the same thing with the 2 in the middle, and the same thing with the second 2 from each end. Well, I've got a problem right here. They're all right, except when I put my screwdriver down this injector hole, I was going to try to do it with the camera, but the camera's not going to fit in that tiny hole. I'm hitting my piston right up here near the top. I see about 3 inches of my screwdriver blade sticking out above the top of the head. Now when I go to the same exact running mate up here, which is number 2, I go all the way down. So what happened is the crown of this piston over here, these are 2-part pistons if I'm not mistaken, the crown of this piston, the top of it, broke off and is stuck up there on top. So I don't know what happened to the bottom. The only way to find out is to get into the bottom of the oil pan.